The spit landed beside my shoe. Not on it. Beside it. A wet, ugly mark on the hardwood floor I had paid to install 6 years earlier, after the old boards warped during a winter leak. I remember staring at it longer than I stared at her. My stepdaughter, Madison, stood in front of me with her arms folded, 17 years old and full of the kind of confidence that only exists when someone else has always paid the consequences. "You're nobody in this house," she said. My wife, Laura, stood in the kitchen doorway. Silent. That silence hurt more than the spit. For 11 years I had lived under that roof believing sacrifice would eventually become belonging. I had paid the mortgage when Laura's hours were cut. I had repaired the furnace, replaced the roof, bought school clothes, covered dental bills, paid tournament fees and sat through freezing soccer matches while Madison's biological father posted birthday messages online and called himself a devoted parent. He was always the hero. I was always the invoice. When Madison wanted driving lessons, I paid. When she made the elite sports program, I paid. When she needed insurance added to the car, I paid. Her debit card carried my money. Her phone was on my plan. Every month, I transferred spending money into her account so she could eat with friends, buy clothes and complain that I was controlling whenever I asked where she was going. I had mistaken dependence for trust. That evening, after she spat at my feet, I did not shout. I did not threaten her. I went upstairs, opened the metal filing cabinet in my office and removed every document that carried my name. Insurance policies, bank authorizations, payment agreements, driving school contracts, sports registrations, phone records. I spread them across my desk and looked at the paper trail of a man who had financed a family that did not consider him family. Then I began making calls. I canceled the driving lessons first. The sports program came next. I removed her from the additional vehicle insurance and informed Laura that Madison was not to drive my car. I froze the debit card connected to my account. I stopped the monthly transfer. I removed my payment details from her phone and every subscription attached to it. I did it quietly, carefully, without revenge. By midnight, Madison's lifestyle no longer rested on my back. The consequences arrived within days. Her driving instructor called to tell her the remaining sessions had been canceled. The sports program emailed that her balance was unpaid. Her card declined at a clothing store in front of 2 friends. Then Laura discovered the insurance change and came into my office holding the paperwork like it was a death certificate. "What have you done?" I looked at her. "Nothing that concerns a nobody." Her face tightened. "She's a teenager. She spat at my feet. She was angry. And you said nothing." Laura lowered her voice, as though calmness could erase what had happened. "You're taking this too far." "No," I said. "I carried it too far. For years." Madison burst into the room before Laura could answer. She was crying, but the tears had anger in them, not regret. "You canceled everything?" "Yes." "You can't do that." "I already did. You're ruining my life." I remember how strange those words sounded. As if her life were something I had broken rather than something I had been funding. I told her to call her father. The room changed when I said it. For years, her biological father, Eric, had been held above me like a sacred photograph. He was the real parent. The real authority. The real blood. Every disagreement ended with Madison reminding me that Eric understood her better. So I suggested they finally let him prove it. Laura called first. Then Madison. Eric answered after several attempts. He listened while they explained the driving lessons, sports fees, insurance, and monthly support. His response was brief. He said he had his own expenses. He said the sports program was unnecessary. He said Madison could wait to drive. He said he had never agreed to provide spending money. Then he ended the call. The hero vanished the moment someone handed him the bill. Financial pressure spread through the house like damp through a wall. Madison missed practices. Her teammates stopped inviting her out as often. She blamed me every day. Laura tried another approach. She sat beside me one night and said it had all been teenage attitude. A phase. A mistake. Then let the mistake teach her, I said. Laura reached for my hand. I moved it away. I was done paying for affection. Done financing the illusion that patience would one day transform contempt into gratitude. My younger stepdaughter, Sophie, watched all of it. She was 15 and had often followed Madison's lead, rolling her eyes when I spoke, ignoring requests until Laura repeated them. But once the money stopped flowing, something in her changed. She found a weekend job at a bakery. She began paying for her own phone extras. She asked before using the car. One evening, she placed part of her paycheck on my desk to cover a school trip. I pushed it back toward her. You earned that. So did you, she said quietly. All those years. That was the first apology anyone in that house gave me without needing something immediately afterward. Madison never changed. Not then. She said I had destroyed her future. She said losing the sports program damaged her college prospects. She blamed me when she had to take the bus. She blamed me when friends drifted away. She blamed me for every discomfort that appeared after my money disappeared. But discomfort is not destruction. Sometimes it is simply reality arriving late. My marriage to Laura lasted another year. Too much had been exposed. Her silence that day had not been an accident. It had been a habit. I moved out with my documents, my savings, and the strange emptiness of a man leaving a house he had built but never truly inhabited. Years passed. Sophie stayed in contact. She worked, studied, and became careful with every dollar. She never called me Dad, and I never asked her to. Respect was enough. Madison went to college through loans, part-time jobs, and grants. She struggled. She graduated anyway. Then, one autumn morning, a letter arrived. It was only a page. She wrote that she had spent years hating me because hatred was easier than admitting how much I had done. She admitted that my support had been the reason she ever learned to drive, played competitive sports, and believed college was possible. She said losing everything forced her to understand the cost of what she had treated as automatic. She did not ask for money. She asked whether we could start again. I read the letter twice. Then I placed it in a drawer. I wrote back that I accepted her apology and respected what she had accomplished. I told her I wished her a good life. But I did not rebuild the relationship. Some bridges collapsed because either side understood their value. Others collapsed because one person spent years holding them up alone. By then, I had started living differently. I traveled. I saw cities I had postponed visiting because tuition was due. I walked along foreign coastlines with no one asking when the next transfer would arrive. I ate alone in quiet restaurants and discovered that solitude felt cleaner than being surrounded by people who measured my worth in payments. For the first time, my life belonged to me. I did not punish Madison that day. I did not destroy her future. I simply stopped financing people who had looked me in the eye and declared that I was not part of their family. They wanted my absence without losing my money. I gave them both. So tell me, was I wrong to believe her words, or should I have kept paying to remain nobody in my own house? The first month after I left the house was quieter than any month I could remember. Not peaceful. Quiet. There is a difference. Peace is something warm. Quiet can be cold enough to preserve a wound exactly as it was when it happened. I rented a small apartment across town, furnished with a narrow bed, a scratch dining table, and 2 chairs, though I never had anyone over. Every evening I came home from work, placed my keys in the same ceramic bowl, and listened to the refrigerator hum in rooms where nobody expected anything from me. No demands. No slammed doors. No accusations disguised as questions. At first, I did not know what to do with the silence. For years, every dollar I earned already had a destination before it reached my account. Insurance. Lessons. Equipment. School trips. Groceries chosen by girls who complained there was nothing to eat while standing in front of shelves I had filled. Now the money remained. That frightened me more than I expected. I had built my identity around being needed. When that need disappeared, I was forced to meet the man underneath it. Laura called almost every night. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she blamed me. Often she did both. She said the house felt empty without me, though Madison and Sophie were still living there. She said the bills were becoming difficult. She said Eric had refused to contribute beyond a small monthly payment that barely covered groceries. Then she told me Madison might lose her place in another sports program because the fees were overdue. I waited for the familiar guilt to rise. It did. But I did not obey it. "You know what this could do to her future," Laura said. "I know what paying for it did to mine." She became silent. That silence was different from the one in the kitchen. Back then, her silence had protected Madison. Now it had nowhere to hide. "You loved them," she whispered. "I did. Then how can you watch them struggle?" I looked through the apartment window at the lights of buildings where strangers lived lives that had nothing to do with me. "Because struggling is not the same as being abandoned. They have a mother. They have a father. They have choices. They had you." "No," I said. "They had my wallet." Laura ended the call. The next morning, Sophie sent me a message asking whether we could meet. I almost refused. Every instinct I had developed told me that another request was coming, dressed in softer words. But I agreed. She arrived at a coffee shop wearing the uniform from her bakery job. Flour clung to one sleeve. Her hair was tied back, and exhaustion sat beneath her eyes in a way I had never seen before. She placed an envelope on the table. Inside was money. Not much. A few wrinkled bills and a handwritten list of expenses she believed she owed me. Phone payments. A school trip. Part of her laptop. I stared at the list. "What is this? What I can pay back? You don't know me for being a child." Her eyes dropped. "Madison says you only helped us so you could control us." The word struck an old bruise. "And what do you think?" I think she says that because the truth makes her feel worse. For the first time since leaving, I felt something inside me loosen. Sophie told me she had started noticing things after I moved out. The broken cabinet hinge nobody repaired. The internet bill Laura forgot to pay. The groceries that no longer appeared without discussion. The car that sat unused because insurance had become too expensive. Small things. Invisible things. The things that had made their lives easy precisely because I handled them before anyone noticed. "I didn't know," she said. "You weren't supposed to worry about those things. But I should have known who was doing them." I pushed the envelope back. "Keep your money." She shook her head. "I don't want to be like her. You won't become better by punishing yourself." She looked at me then, and I saw shame without calculation. No demand waited behind it. So I accepted $1 from the envelope. I folded it and placed it in my wallet. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means the debt is settled," she cried quietly. I did not call her my daughter. She did not call me her father. But when we left, she hugged me. It was the first time anyone from that family touched me without reaching for something beyond me. Madison reacted differently. She sent long messages accusing me of destroying her opportunities. She said scouts had stopped attending her games after she left the elite program. She said her friends had moved forward while she was trapped working evenings at a grocery store. Every sentence placed the blame in my hands. I replied only once. I told her I had funded opportunities, not guaranteed outcomes. I reminded her that she had a mother and a biological father. I told her adulthood had not arrived because I withdrew my money. It had arrived because she had demanded the right to decide who mattered. She responded with 3 words. "I hate you." I read them without shaking. Then I deleted the message. The divorce became final the following spring. Laura did not fight over much. Perhaps she understood that the marriage had ended before I packed a single bag. It had ended in the kitchen, while her daughter spat near my feet and she chose silence over courage. I kept the apartment. I bought a better chair. I began cooking meals for one and stopped treating that number as a tragedy. The money I once poured into people who resented me began building a life that did not require humiliation as its entrance fee. And slowly, painfully, I learned the truth. Being needed is not the same as being loved. Providing is not the same as belonging. And sacrifice, when demanded without gratitude, is merely exploitation wearing the mask of family. So tell me, when a man finally stops carrying those who deny his place, is he abandoning them, or is he simply refusing to abandon himself? 2 years after the divorce, I saw Madison again. Not because she called. Not because I asked. Sophie invited me to a small restaurant after finishing her first year of college. She had earned a scholarship, worked weekends and paid the remaining costs herself. I was proud of her, but careful with that pride. I had learned not to confuse affection with ownership. When I entered the restaurant, Madison was sitting across from her. For a moment, I considered leaving. She looked older than I remembered. The sharp confidence had faded from her face. Her clothes were plain, her hands rough from work, and there were dark circles beneath her eyes. Life had begun writing on her in a language money had once protected her from reading. Sophie stood. "I should have told you," she said. "Yes. I thought neither of you would come." Madison said nothing. I sat at the far end of the table. The silence between us carried every unpaid bill, every accusation, and every night I had spent wondering whether I had been too severe. I had asked myself that question more times than I admitted. Not because I regretted stopping the payments, but because decent men are trained to doubt themselves whenever someone suffers after losing access to their generosity. Madison finally looked at me. "I'm working at a warehouse." I nodded. "Classes during the day. Shifts at night. That sounds difficult." Her mouth tightened. "It is." She waited, perhaps expecting sympathy to become an offer. It did not. She told me she had enrolled at a local college after losing the athletic opportunities she once expected to carry her elsewhere. She had taken loans, applied for grants, and moved into a shared apartment with 2 other students. Eric had contributed nothing. Laura helped when she could, but the divorce had left her balancing the mortgage, utilities, and debts she had never fully understood while I was paying them. Madison stared at the table. "Dad said you were trying to punish him through us." I almost smiled at the cowardice of it. "I stopped paying your expenses. Your father's feelings were never part of that decision. He said you wanted him to fail. He did not need my help." Her face reddened. Sophie reached toward her, but Madison pulled away. "You always do that," she said to me. "You make everything sound simple." "It was simple." "No, it wasn't. You knew he wouldn't help. You knew Mom couldn't afford everything. You knew what would happen." "Yes." The words struck her harder than denial would have. I leaned forward. "I knew you would lose comforts. I knew you would have to work. I knew your plans might change. But I also knew I could not continue buying a place in a family that despised me." I was 17. And I was a man who had spent 11 years being told that age excused every wound. She looked away. The waitress brought water. None of us touched it. Madison's voice fell. "I lost everything." "No. You lost what I provided. To me, that was everything." There it was. The truth she had never understood when she spat at my feet. My money had been invisible because it had always arrived. She noticed the roof only when rain came through it. She noticed the bridge only after burning it. "I hated you," she said. "I know. I told everyone you were controlling. I said you used money to make us obey you. Did you believe that?" "At first." "And now?" Her eyes filled, but she refused to cry. "Now I think I needed to believe it." Sophie lowered her head. Madison explained that anger had protected her from shame. If I was cruel, then she was a victim. If I was controlling, then her contempt had been resistance. If I had ruined her future, she never had to admit that she had rejected the person who made that future possible. The confession should have satisfied me. It did not. Vindication is a poor meal. It fills the mouth and leaves the body empty. I came because Sophie said you might listen, Madison said. I am listening. I want to know what I can do. To get the money back? Her face twisted. No. I watched her carefully. To make you stop looking at me like I'm a stranger. The answer rose inside me immediately, but I let the silence test it. You are a stranger. She flinched. Sophie whispered my name, but I continued. I knew the girl you were. I paid for her lessons, waited outside her practices and stayed awake when she came home late. That girl told me I was nobody. The woman sitting here has lived years I did not share. I do not know her. Madison wiped one tear from her cheek. Then get to know me. I looked at her and felt the old instinct stir. The instinct to repair, protect and carry. It had once ruled me. It had convinced me that love required endless endurance. But I understood it now. It was not always love. Sometimes it was fear. Fear that without sacrifice, I would be unnecessary. I forgive you, I said. Hope appeared in her face. Then I finished. But forgiveness does not restore what was destroyed. The hope vanished. I told her I did not wish her harm. I respected the work she was doing. I hoped she graduated and built a life that belonged to her. But I would not return to the role I had escaped. No tuition. No rent. No rescue. And no performance of fatherhood to comfort people who had denied me when it cost them nothing. Madison sat motionless. Then she nodded. For the first time, she did not argue. We left separately. Outside, Sophie hugged me and asked whether I believed Madison had changed. I believe she has suffered, I said. That isn't what I asked? No. It isn't. Years earlier, I would have mistaken suffering for transformation. I would have opened my wallet, called it mercy and waited for gratitude. That night, I drove home alone. I felt sadness. But I did not feel guilt. There are apologies that reopen doors. Others merely allow both people to walk away without carrying the same poison. Madison wanted a second chance. I wanted the rest of my life. Was I wrong to choose it? The letter arrived on an ordinary Tuesday. No return address. No lengthy explanation. Just my name written in handwriting I recognized immediately. For a long minute, I left it unopened on the kitchen table. Some chapters of life stay closed because opening them seems like inviting old ghosts back into the house. Eventually, curiosity won. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Michael, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect another chance. I only want you to know that I finally understand. When I was 17, I believed everything I had came from life itself. I thought driving lessons appeared because teenagers were supposed to have them. I thought sports fees were simply paid. I thought groceries filled the refrigerator because refrigerators were supposed to stay full. I never asked who made those things possible. I only noticed after they disappeared. Working while studying changed me. Paying my own rent changed me. Standing in line at the bank wondering whether I had enough money to cover my bills changed me. For years I blamed you because blaming myself was harder. The truth is that your support allowed me to dream before I knew how expensive dreams really were. I was too proud to admit it then. I'm admitting it now. Thank you, Madison. I read it twice. Then a third time. There were no excuses. No requests. No hidden questions between the lines. Just acceptance. Strangely, that made the letter heavier. For years I had imagined what an apology might feel like. I thought it would erase something inside me. I thought it would close the wound that had followed me from that afternoon when she spat near my feet and declared I was nobody. It didn't. Some scars stop hurting long before they disappear. I folded the letter carefully and placed it inside the same drawer where I kept old photographs from vacations we had taken together years before everything fell apart. I looked through those pictures for the first time in ages. There was Madison at 12, smiling after winning a tournament. There was Sophie laughing beside a lake. There was Laura with her arm around my shoulders before resentment slowly replaced gratitude. Looking at those photographs, I realized something unexpected. None of the smiles were fake. The good moments had been real. So had the bad ones. Life had not been a lie. It had simply reached a point where love and respect no longer existed in the same place. A week later, I wrote my reply. It took less than 15 minutes. I thanked Madison for her honesty. I told her I respected the woman she had become because she had built her future through work instead of entitlement. I wished her happiness. I wished her peace. I wished her success. But I also told her that I would not be rebuilding the relationship we once had. Not because I hated her. Because I had finally learned how to protect myself. After mailing the letter, I booked a ticket I had postponed for nearly a decade. Italy. It had always been on my list. Every year I delayed the trip because someone needed tuition, equipment, repairs, or spending money. This time there was no reason to wait. Walking through narrow streets in cities I had only seen in photographs, I felt lighter than I had in years. I drank coffee without checking my banking app. I watched sunsets without calculating next month's expenses. I bought souvenirs for myself instead of convincing myself that everyone else's happiness had to come first. For the first time in my adult life, generosity was a choice instead of an obligation. One evening, sitting beside the sea, I realized I no longer replayed that afternoon in my mind. The spit, the words, Laura's silence. They had finally become memories instead of prisons. Forgiveness had not come from Madison's letter. It had come from the distance I had placed between my old life and the one I had built afterward. People often believe strength means enduring everything. I believed that for years. Now I know better. Sometimes strength is quietly collecting every document with your name on it, walking away from people who have already walked away from you emotionally, and refusing to finance your own humiliation any longer. I never punished my family. I simply accepted the role they assigned me. If I truly was nobody in their house, then my money had no place there either. Everything that followed grew from that single truth. Looking back, I no longer wonder whether I made the right decision. I only wonder why it took me so many years to make it. So tell me honestly, how long should a man continue sacrificing for people who have already decided he doesn't belong?